it.
Got it. And we are live.
Got
And
it.
yes, and okay, and yes. And hello and welcome. Welcome to another wonderful conversation. Oh, there's some techie stuff that's just disappeared that our beautiful guest has just disappeared from my screen. But now she's back. And our wonderful conversation with our beautiful Sue Rumack, who we're getting in our series of unveiling our tribe leaders, our tribe hosts. And of course, Sue is a very honored, definitely honored, but welcome host of Life Force Activators, which I'm really excited about the tribe. But today, Sue, we have a very interesting conversation with you all about little secrets,
Mm.
tribe leaders, little secrets. And this is going to be, I mean, I'm excited about it, right? We're going to, and we've talked, Bill, before about, learning about, chatting about how we can be multi-layered and multi-leveled, and also, like just creating or living a life of secrets. So why don't we start with you again, because it's all about you, and tell us about your little secrets that have helped you in your life.
Little secrets that have helped me in my life. I think that it took me easily 3 decades
Mhm.
to figure out who I was and to accept that person because I knew I was always changing. I was always becoming a different piece of myself. I was married really young at 21, had our first child by the time I was 22. Husband and I started our first business together as entrepreneurs when we were 23. And we stayed entrepreneurs, both of us, until our divorce, which
Mhm.
was 25 years later.
Mhm.
So entrepreneurship, leadership, being the owner and the motivator and the creator and the designer and the inventor and the person that keeps that energy flowing, um, that's who I always identified myself to be, was that, if you want to talk in terms of human design, a manifesting generator. That's
Yes.
who that's who I am. That's who I've always been. Um, and I think that that's a secret for most leaders, is that they have some profile in that person who generates energy and ideas and creativity and connections with other people and excitement, magnetism, charisma. Um, I think that's what generators do.
Mhm.
And then there's that manifesting piece where where you do all the different pieces that make that idea, creation, connection, work and be
Mhm.
successful. And that's part of the secret of a person who has a leadership type personality. And I never thought of myself as being a leader. I just thought of myself as being bossy. And a little bit demanding, perhaps a little bit devious at times, with a little bit of a strategy that was kind of working in the background that would lead everybody that I wanted to do something, to do it as I needed it to get done. A little bit devious. I think that leaders either come out really strong with those personality traits,
Yes.
or they dumb them down and bring them in. They sneak them in under
Yes.
under the fence so that people
Yes.
don't notice them, and people don't realize that that person is actually leading, because they're leading very quietly.
Yes.
And in my marriage, because we worked together, we lived together, we did everything together. We were each other's best friends, for so many years, that a lot of my leadership skills had to come in under that fence. They had to come in
Yes.
quietly. Um, and I knew that if I wanted something different to happen, I had to introduce it a couple of weeks before I wanted it to get done, and introduce it in such a way that it would appear to be his idea, not
uh,
mine. And
uh,
then we would kind of come back to that idea a few times and flesh it out. And eventually he assumed that it was his idea. Now
yes,
you have to remember that was 50 years ago
yes,
when women's roles were not as aggressive or
that's it.
acceptable, leaders as acceptable as they are now.
Yes,
As a matter of fact, I could not get a bank loan without his signature.
yes,
I
yes,
couldn't get a I couldn't even get a business license without his signature.
yes. I hear you.
Hmm.
And how life has changed for the
Yep,
better in that
yep,
circumstances,
yep,
But
yep.
I love it
I,
how you're talking about, you didn't realize that you're a leader, but you have the qualities and you had the
mhm,
qualities, you still got the qualities of being a
mhm,
leader. And, there are many different types of leaders. There are many different ways that people can lead. And
yep,
including, and I just want to honor you and thank you for also sharing about how quiet people who are
mhm,
generally, a little bit quiet, little bit, you would say introspective or introverted,
mhm.
can also be leaders by just being who they are.
Find your strategies.
Yes,
Find the strategy that works for you that's not a passive aggressive strategy.
yes.
And I think that, in the it's funny because in the years after my husband and I divorced after 25 years of marriage, my eldest daughter, who at the time was around 23, um, she described me as being passive aggressive.
Mm,
She described my leadership qualities as
aggressive.
passive aggressive, which
Yes,
is considered to be a
yeah,
hostile personality trait, when
yes.
in fact it was the only way that I could be a leader in in our circumstance
In
because
your
it
life.
had established itself in the early part of our 25 years together,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so I had to validate um, myself. I had to take a hard look. Am I truly passive aggressive? And I did some research on people who are passive aggressive leaders. And what I discovered was that my daughter's interpretation of passive aggressive didn't exactly match the dictionary version of what it was. But it was that person who comes in with an agenda that isn't entirely, what's the word for it, transparent,
Mhm.
and that perhaps the language that I used might have been a little bit, what's the word for it, not transparent. In other words, a little bit manipulative.
Yes.
Um, but not in a nasty way, I didn't think. But at the time, it's such a long time ago. I've been divorced for going on 27 years. I was
Yes.
married 25, divorced 27. That's a long time to be living and moving through the leadership personality.
Mm.
And so I can see how it changes. You may start off as a leader in one way, but
And then grow.
you become a very different kind of leader depending on your experiences in
Yes,
the
of
world.
course, definitely. And we all change, we all grow.
Hmm.
Life would be boring if we weren't.
Definitely.
And if I can say, like, yes, your daughter might have said that she saw you as being passive aggressive then, but I would maybe call it assertive, and
In some ways,
yes,
yeah,
and being
yeah,
able to stand up for your beliefs,
right.
for your, things like that. So
Yep.
it's just a different way of looking at it. So
Well,
yes,
interestingly, my daughter and her husband are also entrepreneurs
yes,
together in the same business. And how she identified me 25, 27 years ago. She's been married, I guess, 21 years now.
mhm,
And so she's in her early 50s.
mhm,
And if I were to ask her to describe her leadership style in the family and in their business, she might, I see her doing a lot of the things that I did that were the good things. Her agenda is not always transparent. Her language is quite often leading,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
A lot of times their ideas they discuss together, they don't really know who came up with it.
Yeah.
And they're both very creative in that. So, I mean, as women, choose a leadership role, we have to be prepared that we're going to be stumbling around in the dark for a little while, figuring out what our leadership style is and seeing how effective it is and how it affects people, whether it's an effective style and in that you get the results that you want, or are you setting up hostile boundaries that people feel uncomfortable trying to reach you and talk to you and work with you. And
Mm.
it's so often that as leaders we accidentally, in order to protect our place in that leadership pecking order, we need to be a little bit more hostile or aggressive, a little bit more forceful.
Yeah.
But I think that comes back to that question of who am I as a leader? And I think that as leaders, that once a year, every year, take half a day, go take a walk somewhere, take a spa day, take a anything, go hug a tree day,
Mhm.
but go walk in the stream barefoot day. But honestly, take that time. Who am I as a leader? I was this way last year. What's happened this year and how have I changed? So
Yes.
one of the secrets of a good leader is to really keep defining who you are
Yes.
in your role,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm.
And that is
Hmm.
so true. And I'm really glad that you talked about, taking those days off, because that's
Hmm.
also, like I said, being a secret to being a good leader, because you're leading in your own life. You're looking after
Hmm.
yourself. You're putting yourself first, and fulfilling your needs, whatever that may be, whether it's, I love your idea of a spa day or just going and walking in nature and
Yeah.
stuff, which is totally, I think it is very different, but can also be a solution, maybe, or totally opposite of
Mm.
the next question I was going to ask you. Um, and maybe it's a result too, is what about these crazy days? We're talking about before, we're talking about just being crazy, and like crazy because we're multi-leveled, multi-layered, multi-everything, multitasking in
Yeah.
this crazy world. So what's the secret that you've experienced, that you've been able to develop, there you go, the secret to living in a crazy world with all this craziness happening around us?
In the early years, I had no strategy. I had no secret. I just ran from crazy to crazy to crazy to crazy, multi-layer, multi-level, multi-crazy, multi everything. Because when I first started, I was running two businesses, my husband's and my own. I had two children, two young children. Um, I was keeping house myself. I didn't have any help in the house. I was doing all the cooking. I was doing the homework with the kids. My husband did all the pickup and delivery for schools and stuff. Didn't have to worry about that. I was doing shows. But I had three stores going at the same
Mhm.
time, and I was designing and manufacturing all my merchandise.
Mhm.
So I had to do all the design pieces, a season in advance,
Yes.
and I order all the fabrics and get all the patterns made and tested. And so, I mean, I was running from fire to fire to fire to fire. And if it wasn't a fire in the production, it was a fire with my staff. It wasn't the staff. It was with one of the store locations. It was with my husband's store and his staff. It was with the bank, of course, because when I did that, we were running through multiple recessions. Um, and it was a very crazy time. I don't think that in those years I had a self-care strategy. I didn't. As a matter of fact, I just breathed. I would just go, okay, here's something that I did do. All right. This I can share because this I remember. I would in the morning before as I was leaving for my crazy day, because I would leave at 7 o'clock in the morning and I wouldn't get home until 9 at night. And so in the morning, I would make myself a mental list of and sometimes a written list of everything that had to get done that day. Then I would put them in priority. What had to happen first, which was my biggest fire, right? Then I would imagine a very long table, an empty table in a white room, nothing in the room but this empty table and a closet. And the closet would have an open door, and inside there were shelves. Every one of those tasks that I had to do that day would go into a single box that I would put on the table. And then I would arrange them in my mind. This went very fast. Like it was like ching, 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 ching.
Mhm.
And then I would arrange the boxes on the table as to which were my biggest fires, which had to get done first.
Yes.
Everything else, everything else went into the cupboard. I would pick that box up and in my mind and put it on a shelf in the cupboard, right?
Mhm.
So I would, and then I would only have the one box on the
Mhm.
table.
Mhm.
That's the one thing I would do every single step I could before I had to, before I'd done everything I could to make that thing happen.
Mhm.
And when that one was done, I would put it back in the cupboard and I'd take the next box.
Mhm.
I take it down and I would do all the pieces in that box. And that way, in most days, I got through my biggest fires and
Yeah.
got to work on some of the smaller ones.
Yes.
And so by the end of the day, I didn't have as many fires to carry forward to the next day. And a lot of those fires were financial issues. Some of them were legal issues. Some of them were staffing issues. Some of them were my kids. Um, some of them were my husband wasn't well. Some of them were him. You know, who's the biggest fire today that absolutely needs my complete and total attention now? And I had my files at the store. I had my fabric samples. I had my patterns. I had a very long counter, and I even had a sewing machine set up at one end of the counter. So when I wasn't working on my fires, tending to clients, selling product, um, I would actually be making product at the store at the same time. So you
Yes.
asked me, how did I do it? What was the secret?
That was the secret.
It was strategizing which was my biggest fire, what I had
Yeah.
to do to make to put out the fire, and then creating a mental system for filing those other things so they were no longer distractions.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
wouldn't even, and I gave myself permission not to think about the other things
Mhm.
until I completed everything I could do on the one that I was focusing on.
Yeah. Which helps so much, doesn't it? It's
Well, it does.
challenging, but it helps so much.
Well, and I found that when I finally became a life coach, I was no longer a manufacturer. I worked in corporate world for a while. I did the same thing in the corporate world. I had a lot of files, I had a lot of fires, and I would just deal with the biggest ones first. Working corporate. That
Yeah.
was after my divorce and after I closed my businesses.
Yeah.
That I think that was the most restful time of my entire life until now.
Well,
Was after my divorce and closing my business. But I found that as a life coach, working with clients, having that whole concept of dealing with the biggest fires first and putting things in boxes on shelves in a closet that whose door you close and lock the door. So you're only working on the one box. And I've shared that as a strategy with my coaching clients, my life coaching clients, my divorce coaching clients, my overwhelmed coaching clients, my empath coaching clients. I've shared that strategy with every single one of them because number one, you have to invest your
yes.
belief, your belief in the idea that isolating one problem and letting everything else stay in the
Good thing.
closet until you've done everything you can. When you do that, you relieve your overwhelm so
Yeah.
much. And you give yourself, but you have to give yourself permission
To do
because
that.
we are, yeah, yeah, the multitasking, multi-level, multi-crazy, multi
Everything.
permissions, multi everything. Um, while it makes us look so leaderish, you know, I've got all these things I'm doing. I'm such a great leader. But until you can give yourself permission to stop being the epitome of a leader and just deal with that one issue, then you're really becoming the leader.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree with you. And thank you again so much for the closet idea.
Mm,
I do, my brain, I'm really grateful for me personally. I call it my automatic filing system.
hmm.
That's how I cope. But I love the idea about putting it in a closet and shutting the door, putting everything in a closet and shutting the door and just focusing on what's in front of you,
And
focusing on
lock the
the
door.
box that's in
Yeah,
front of you. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Because if you lock that door, the
Yes.
thing is you have to take the key out to open the door, which means you're paying attention to the monkey mind
Right.
that takes you off in so many directions.
Yes, absolutely. Love it.
Mm,
Thank you. Thank you for
my
that.
pleasure.
Now, I definitely want to get into about your businesses and things because as
Hmm.
well as, being a tribe host, you have a few different businesses or what one business, but offer different services. But just before we do that, let's just go into the life force activators tribe a
Sure.
little bit. And I'd love to know, how is your journey, like your multi-layered journey of your life, filled with all the craziness, filled with everything else. How
Hmm.
did that inspire the foundation of the Life Force Activators tribe?
That's a good question. I think that being a coach for 18 years, which is how long I've been a coach, a professional coach, I've observed that ordinary people, real people, um, get so lost in the multiple levels of their own lives, leaders or not, regular, ordinary working people, moms who stay at home, healers even who really are so invested in their healing practices. They get lost in all the different levels and the facets of their lives. And there's all these when you look at a diamond and it flashes in the light, you go to the flash of the diamond. You're drawn to it. And that happens to us in our lives. And sometimes we go down rabbit holes. I've been down so many rabbit holes in my own life and gotten lost for a while and came back. Um, I think that was the motivation for Life Force Activators, is that recognizing that real real good people with the best of life intentions, with so much love in their hearts and their bodies, um, get overstimulated in their lives, get a little bit distracted down too many roads, and then they get kind of burnt out. And burnout is something that I work with a lot. So I felt that for Sacred You, a life force activators, where we just take that time where we explore really easy concepts
Yeah.
that help people to find their way back to joy and vibrancy and emotional stability. We're not doing coaching sessions in our group. We're talking about concepts,
Mhm,
life concepts,
mhm,
and simple ones. But
mhm.
we make it so much fun that we give people permission to enjoy those 30 minutes or half hour, however much time we spend together. Um, it's a pause,
Mhm,
you know, it's that time out
mhm.
where you can just explore something different about yourself that opens up a new perspective that takes you down a fresh path.
Yes.
And and you can't fix what's broken in an hour a week
Mhm,
or an hour every 2 weeks. You can't. But you can open up a new path to question yourself. And if you pick up, and it's the same way I gave you that little cupboard with the shelves and the boxes and everything, I toss out those little helpful tools during our sessions. I demonstrate some empath protection and shielding and grounding. We talk about we talk about metaphysical things, but not from the perspective, not from the high perspective, but from the people perspective.
yes.
It's a very people leveled group. Um, we talk about law of attraction, but not as law of attraction. We talk about it as vibrational frequencies that our brains broadcast out to either attract or repel people or situations, and how other people's brains have that same electrical force field that recognizes and either accepts or pushes back on what we broadcast. That's law of attraction, but it's
Yes.
it's talked about from such a different perspective. It's at a people level, and so I mean that's something else that as an empath trainer, an empath coach, helping empaths deal with overwhelm and negativity and narcissists and all those things that get them controlled and spinning. Um, it's all about that. What other people would call law of attraction, I'm calling it's an electrical force field that our brains actually project. It's
Yes.
science. It's
Yes.
science. So we bring it into perspective as being science, which is very touchable, very doable, and law of attraction, which is metaphysical. So we marry the two. That's how I really believe that Life Force Activators is a place for people to experience that kind of ground level real people speak about the things that we cover in so many of our tribes that may be handled at a different level. And they can it was really interesting. Last week's meeting was about body consciousness,
Yes.
which is the felt sense, which is somatics, which is when there's some negative stuff out there, hostility, control, whatever, it comes at us as a vibrational frequency.
Yes.
And that vibrate the way our brain works, it rings all kinds of bells in our bodies, which is felt,
Mhm,
squeezing of your heart, closing
mhm,
of your throat, brain fog, um, gut stuff, IBS. All that is is that same kind of protection.
mhm.
And but in three or four different groups, tribes, last week, we were all talking about some different aspect of what we called body consciousness.
Consciousness. Yes.
And how what we experience in the world, we feel in our bodies first.
Yes.
And it was interesting to
So
me
true.
that it was interesting to me that it was discussed in three different tribes on the same week using the same concept of body consciousness, but just used in terms of that tribe's language.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's something I really like about Sacred You is that we accidentally, and we don't confer on each other's terms. Tribe meetings, we have no idea what the topics are going to be because we don't always. I mean, I pop in on different tribes at different times just to just to kind of see what's
Yeah.
happening because I love the tribe meetings. I get a lot out of them. Um, but I found it really interesting
Mm,
that that so many tribes are talking about the same thing. Maybe it would just happen to be a universal relevance,
mm, mm.
something
Absolutely.
we had to talk about.
Maybe it did.
Maybe
Maybe it was all orchestrated by the universe, but it's
it
wonderful.
just never.
It's wonderful about that connection.
That's what
Like
I
you said,
thought.
that yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. Before we continue, I just want to bring in that we do have a few people watching us. So for
Hi.
everyone who is watching, please say hello. Drop your name in the comments. We'd love to know who is tuning in. We are using Restream, so we don't always get to see who's that. So please put your name in the comments. Let us know where you're calling in from. And if you have any questions for Sue, who's the wonderful host of the Life Force Activators, or anything that you'd like to add to the conversation, please put in the comments. And while you're there, click on the links that have been put in the comments because we've got more information about the Life Force Activators tribe. We've also got more information on what Sue provides as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a coach, which is what I want to ask you now, Sue, before we finish up. Like you do calm the overwhelming coaching.
Yes.
And overwhelm is such a big thing in today's world. I call it the pandemic of overwhelm.
Hmm.
Everyone you're talking to, it's like, I'm so overwhelmed with everything that's going on. But you also help people who are going through divorce and plus many other things too. And you're an empath trainer. You help people who are empaths or highly sensitive people to cope in the world. But what I'd love to know is what are the secrets, or even if it's just one secret that you can share um, to overcome, to calm the overwhelm.
Oh, there's so many.
I know
So
there's so many.
many. So many. I do have. Most of the overwhelm that we experience as highly sensitive people, and most of the people who are listening in because you're spiritual people,
Yes.
you're spirit connected people, you're healers, you're looking for healing. Um, Most of us feel so much from our environment, from the people around us, the situations, the animals, the climate, the politics, the religion, all of that. We feel the illness, the pain of other people. We feel all of that in our bodies. And I think that most people don't realize that a good 85% of the pain and the fear and the burnout that we feel in our bodies isn't ours. It belongs to somebody else,
Yes. Yes.
or it belongs to the media. It belongs to the social networks. It belongs to mob thought.
Yes.
And so much of what we feel as overwhelm is not yours, not yours. And so the secret to figuring out whether it's yours, you have to ask from a kind of stepping out of yourself place. In other words, you have to accept that if it's not mine, my body is actually going to tell me honestly, yes or no, is it mine? So if you're able to step outside of the feelings, the belief systems that if I feel it, it's mine.
Mhm.
And that's what our belief system, if I feel it, it's mine, and you're not going to convince me otherwise until I do convince you otherwise. Um, and you ask your body. Now you don't ask your head because your brain is going to tell you what your belief system believes.
Yes.
You ask your heart, you ask your physical body,
Okay.
is this mine? And your physical body will come back with a knowingness that flashes in your brain so fast that yes, it's yours, or no, it's not yours. And that no, it's not yours is 85% of the time with my clients.
Mhm.
And they get so, and there's sometimes I say, well, you know what? My body is saying that it's mostly somebody else's, but part of it's mine too. And
Mhm.
that's as true an answer as as anything else. So it's either a yes, it's yours, no, hell no, it's not. Or most of it belongs to somebody else, but part of it's mine.
Mhm.
And from that perspective, you can begin to release what's not yours.
Mhm.
You can just say, you know what, if it's not mine, let it go,
Mhm.
right? If it is mine, then I need to do a bit of work to figure this thing out. And you go and you get the help that you need to figure it out. And sometimes it's a good therapist, sometimes it's a good coach, sometimes it's a good healer, sometimes it's just you talking to yourself.
Yes.
Truthfully, I believe in the coach because
Yeah.
that's me.
And it's true
But
because it's always, I mean, and that's a secret. You know, coaches are there to, there's a sounding board to share things, to
mhm,
help, guide you and inspire you and stuff like that. So, and sometimes that could just be the secret. So,
coaches are not therapists.
no.
And therapists are there to listen to you, listen to your story, inspire you. Coaches are there. The original concept of a coach, when it was originally defined about 20 years ago, is that a coach is different from a therapist.
Yes,
You bring one issue, problem to a coach. The coach will help you design the agenda to solve the problem
problem.
along with the belief system changes and the health challenges, and working through and being an accountability partner to keep you on track. But the coach will help you to strategize managing, solving that problem, that issue. and they'll give you a timeline in which to make it happen, and they'll help you along with milestones and strategies. And they'll help you to rethink concepts that you have about yourself, belief systems, so that they change, so that that issue doesn't come up again in the same way in the
Nice.
future. That's the difference between a
The
therapist and a
and a
coach.
coach. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, absolutely. And before we go, Sue, just the thing, because you're also, and you're a wonderful coach, calming the overwhelm coaching and life coaching, things like that. But tell us, then you also move into helping people who are going through divorce.
Mm.
What's the secret to for everyone, both men and women,
Mhm.
women may, a lot of
Mhm.
times it's women, but also men. What's the secret for anyone who's going through divorce, it to restarting their life again?
Identity. That's the secret. It's the main thing that I focus on is I call it divorce identity.
Yes.
And divorce identity begins, it can begin even before you're married. You
Yes.
when you hook up with this person, you either drag old belief systems into the marriage with you or into the relationship with you. And it depending on the person that you marry, that person may manage that belief system um, in ways that control you. And I work with a lot of people who are going through narcissistic divorces,
Yes.
right? A lot. Because if you've got a decent partner, you're not, you're able to come up with good strategies, but you still have that divorce identity. So who I was when I first got married and loved and appreciated and treasured and all that, that's who I was. What happened? What happened to me? I've become bitter. I've become angry. I've become hostile. I've become fearful. I've lost my courage. I've lost my concept of me, who I am. And that tends to, as divorce deregulates your life, what ends up happening is that every aspect of your life gets shaken apart. What we work on is divorce identity.
Mhm.
Who you are now, that that proves step by step that you have the abilities. You've always had them, or maybe you're developing new ones, or you're enhancing ones that existed. We bring out your strengths. And we prove to you that you have everything that you need to live a winning, thriving life, even while you're still going through divorce. Now, a lot of people feel that they have to wait until after the divorce is done to heal.
Mhm.
If you wait until after the divorce is done to heal, you are dragging years of
Yes.
bitterness along behind you. And
Yes.
it's toxic and it poisons every aspect of your future until you can get it under control. And that can take years. So if you start with the divorce identity coaching while you're still in the middle of divorce, we teach you strategies. We teach you how to protect your energy so that narcissistic control does not get through. It doesn't shut you down. It doesn't take control of your sleep and send you into night terrors. So if you're asking what we do, what's the secret? The secret to thriving through your divorce instead of coming out a toxic hot mess is to work with the divorce identity that you're establishing in the process of the divorce, right?
Yep. I get it. Identity is a big thing.
It's
And it's
huge.
for everyone, right from day one. It's,
Hmm.
we all start to grasp what our identity is. And especially when I said, if in relationship with other people and been in relationship well, it doesn't really matter how long. Of course, the longer it is, the more complex it becomes, about the identities that we take on. And then we have to go through that when we're divorcing, because a lot of those identities are lost. And we have to go through
Definitely.
that. And that's why you're definitely an amazing and wonderful, thoroughly
Mm.
recommended person to chat about what's the secret to letting go of those identities and regaining our new identity of who we really are, in that. So thank you so very,
Oh,
very,
you're
very much,
welcome.
Sue. But one last little question before we wrap up, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation, is about the secrets, about your secrets, the secrets of being a tribe leader, tribe hosted leader in life, and everything else that you offer. Is there any other question that I could have asked you, and how would have you answered?
I'm thinking about that. I'm really thinking about that. What else could you have asked me? Why do I keep doing it? Why do I keep going? So as a business leader, I was constantly on a treadmill. I was constantly running against myself and time and everything else. After my divorce, I closed my businesses, and for 10 years I had to redefine myself. And
Yes.
that was divorce identity. I had to figure out who I was because I didn't know anymore. And the trauma of not knowing, it wasn't the trauma of the divorce. It was the trauma of not knowing who I was anymore that actually caused me to sabotage my own business and kill them. I actually killed it, dead, which meant that I had to go out and get a job, a real job, a paying job in the corporate world, which I did. Um, and it was that job that gave me the space to test out theories about who I was. So I think identity is the hugest secret. I don't run on the same kind of treadmill that I did. I'm a different kind of leader now. And it's because I was forced to re-identify who I was and then keep on re-identifying and re-identifying. You're never just one identity.
Mm-hmm.
I find that every 10 years, I have to do a real shakeup and say, well, who am I now?
Mm-hmm.
This is a new decade. Who am I now? And yeah, I'm approaching mid-decade for this coming birthday.
Yes.
And I'm doing that identity check right now. Just
Yes.
to see, I'm doing that checkup with me right now to see who am I, where do I want to be, what do I want to do for the next 10 years? I'm mid-decade.
Yes.
Um, and I'm not sure. I'm truly not sure. I've only started that little bit of work right now. I'll let you know.
Yes. Which I'm really looking forward to. I'm actually really looking forward to going through your journey of the mid-decade and the identity of that and
Mhm.
beyond and beyond, because what you bring to Sacred You, Sue, and not just Sacred You, but the whole world, because it spreads out from there and all your tribe members and everything else. It's, what's the word for it? I mean, right now what I'm getting is music box.
Hmm.
Such a incredible amount of a variety of tunes that enlighten and enhance everyone's life. So I just want to thank you. And for everyone who is watching, do click on these links and connect with Sue. No matter what stage of life you're going through, whether if you're going through divorce, definitely connect with Sue. But if you're not, and you want to know more about, identities and or even how you can activate your life force and
Mm,
share it with others and maintain it, definitely connect with Sue and come and join us in Sacred You. So, Sue,
absolutely.
thank you ever so much for joining us today. And I said it's been a wonderful honor, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too. It's always an adventure
It
when we
is.
talk.
It is, and that's the wonderful thing, is you never know what we're going to be talking about. And we do have, like I said, we do have a few people watching us, so pop
Wonderful.
their names in. I think Arvin's been watching from the Philippines, so thank you, Arvin. And for everyone else, if you're just tuning in, wait a few moments until we end this live, and then you can watch the video again.
Mm.
So you have a beautiful evening.
Can I just invite
Yes.
anybody who's listening that is already a member of Sacred You to join me to Monday night,
Yes. Tomorrow
8:30
night. Yes.
8 AEST, 8:30 AEST is Life Force Activators meeting. And
Yes.
if you're already a member of Sacred You, I would love to have you pop in and join us. If you're not a member of Sacred You, go to the website, click on the $1 special where you get 2 weeks of free access to everything we offer, and come and join me tomorrow night for $1.
For
Okay.
$1, which
And then join
is
me
a
every week
bonus.
after that.
Yes. So yes, and thank you for saying that. So that's tomorrow. That's in 24 hours. Well,
Hmm.
one day, let me say one day, and about 8 hours, 8.5 hours. So I don't know what that is. In about 32 hours, 32, 33 hours.
Yeah, 32.
Come and
Yes.
something like
Yeah.
that. But it's all there on our website. As Sue said, go check out sacredyou.love, sacredyou.love. It's all there. Or it's all in the Facebook group, wherever you're tuning in from. Just check out the events, and Life Force Activators is the place to be in about 32 hours. Thank you,
Great.
Sue. It has
My
been a
pleasure.
wonderful honor to talk to you. And you take care, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely.